Carnage is basically Venom's extra evil cousin, and one of Spider-Man's most enduring enemies. Without a little help, our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man stands almost no chance against the pure chaotic energy that Carnage brings to the table. The main antagonist of both Spider-Man and Venom, Carnage is a force to be reckoned with. He is stronger, faster, more durable, and has more abilities than either of the two can muster on their own. Carnage's alter ego is Cletus Cassidy, a backwoods cult leader and serial killer who worships the god of the symbiotes, Knull. Let's take a look at the ways this psychopathic country boy could take out Spidey for good. One of the most obvious abilities that Carnage has at his disposal is his raw physical strength. He has incredible power and is even stronger than both Spider-Man and Venom put together. This fact alone makes Carnage a serious contender in the webcrawler rogues gallery, before you even take into account all of his other broken and overpowered abilities. Carnage's strength can vary a bit, but he is most regularly put into the 80-ton lifting capacity camp. Depending on his size and absorption, he can get far stronger. Carnage's incredible strength is believed to stem at least partially from the psychopathic nature of the symbiote's host, Cletus. Because Cletus is completely unrestrained mentally, the symbiote was completely unrestrained in its power as well. If Spider-Man found himself in the grip of the much stronger Carnage, it would require some quick thinking to even have a chance of escape. Due to the nature of the symbiote, Carnage is able to shift his body in extraordinary ways, giving him a huge amount of flexibility in how he handles fights. He is often seen extending tentacle-like appendages from his body in order to aid him in combat, to either restrain or impale his opponents. He can also create bladed instruments like axes, swords, and knives from his symbiote form. One of the most disconcerting aspects of his shapeshifting, however, is the ability to take the exact form of another person. Think of John Carpenter's The Thing, except the Thing is Carnage and you've pretty much got the idea. He most often uses this to form his Cletus Cassidy appearance, before his original passing. He has even used it to impersonate the alter ego of Venom, Eddie Brock. Turns out one of Carnage's most powerful abilities doesn't come from combat, but the ability to make you distrust your own friends and allies. There is an interesting quirk with the symbiote family that Spider-Man's spider sense is completely useless against them. Considering spider sense is one of the most iconic and powerful abilities Spidey has at his disposal, Carnage as well as Venom's ability to remove Spidey's sixth sense makes them natural counters to the New York webcrawler. Spider sense essentially gives our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man the ability of precognition, an almost psychic sense that allows him to react to danger much faster than reactions would allow, and even dodging before the threat is present at all. Since this is one of Spider-Man's most useful abilities, he often puts a lot of reliance on it. That's why Carnage's power to negate his spider sense makes him an even more significant threat. Even his web slinging becomes more difficult, and he doesn't do it as a second nature without Spidey sense. A lot of Spider-Man's enemies use him as a sort of jumping off point, and this is especially true in the case of Venom and Carnage. Both of them have a webbing ability through their symbiote that allows them to restrain people and travel much faster than they would be able to without. In the case of Carnage, this webbing doesn't have any particularly special abilities against Spider-Man, as it is quite similar to Spidey's own web-slinging power. He pretty much uses it in an identical manner to Spider-Man, both in its restraining capability and its use to swing from building to building in an effort to swat the pesky spider. In a vacuum, Carnage's webbing doesn't have that much going for it, but when you consider all of his other abilities on top of it, this is one web you really do not want to get stuck in. Carnage is so much more than just another Venom symbiote, because it latched onto one of the most depraved and immoral human beings in the Marvel Universe, Cletus Cassidy. Not only did this allow the symbiote to become far more powerful than the comparatively humane mindset of Eddie Brock, but it also means that Cletus will do anything he can to achieve his goals and create as much chaos and, dare I say, carnage as possible. Carnage has absolutely no restraints when in the heat of battle, and he will use any opportunity he can get to take an opponent out, preferably with as much pain and suffering as possible. Unlike Spider-Man or Venom, who have a lot of mental hang-ups holding them back from truly going all out in a fight, Carnage has no care about what kind of destruction his actions cause, and because of that, he is even more dangerous than his powers would indicate. Because Carnage is a pure primal force of nature, he has no qualms about human life. More importantly, he knows how to use innocent life as a weapon against a hero like Spider-Man. Time and time again, we've seen Carnage use an innocent civilian in an attempt to have Spider-Man make a moral decision or otherwise put him on his back foot. We see this used in the famous scene from the first Spider-Man, where the Green Goblin makes Peter choose between Mary Jane and a tram full of children. Well, Carnage does the same kind of thing, and he does it a lot. It's a pretty terrible thing to make an incredibly virtuous hero like Spider-Man choose between innocent life and his own, but it's a choice that Carnage likes to force often. Being an absolute drag to society comes with some benefits as a supervillain, I suppose. Carnage almost has no end to his abilities, and this one is pretty out there. It's also quite horrifying. Carnage is capable of physically entering the minds of his opponents and reading their thoughts and memories. He can even use this ability to influence his target, though he isn't able to outright control them. That is, until he is given enough time to do so. Upon ending the life of his targets, Carnage can implant the symbiote in them and make them into a zombified Carnage-controlled puppet. This ability is fairly limited. It's not one of his go-to abilities, but it is super scary. Going along with the psychic angle, Carnage is also a hive mind, as he has a direct connection to Knull, the god of symbiotes, and therefore is connected to the entire symbiote family tree. As if all of his other abilities weren't enough, Carnage is extremely difficult to kill. His durability and regenerative abilities put him near the insane survivability levels of someone like Deadpool's Wade Wilson. Like Deadpool, Carnage is able to regenerate entirely from almost nothing, and unless he is killed with absolute certainty, Carnage will almost definitely return for round 2. He was even able to regenerate from just his severed head when Venom lopped it right off. He pretty much has to be destroyed on the nearly cellular level, otherwise he will almost inevitably come back. Even getting to the point where his regeneration is a factor is difficult enough. His durability is no slouch either. Carnage can shrug off most conventional damage with ease. Bullets, lasers, and blunt force mean little to the symbiote. As mentioned with Carnage's shapeshifting abilities, Carnage is able to form his symbiote mass into weapons, particularly bladed ones such as axes and spears. Along with his ranged webbing ability, however, Carnage can shoot these weapons from his body with deadly force. Aside from the more conventional weaponry, he also often forms keratin-like needles from his body that he will fire at his opponents with impunity. Most often you'll see him fire them from his claw-like hands. He can also fire the shards from his body, acting like a get off me ability that can shred anyone who gets too close, almost like a fragmentation grenade. Combining his ranged webbing along with his thrown and shot weapons, Carnage becomes a deadly opponent at both close and long range. The final ultimate ability of Carnage is the one that takes him from just a strong enemy to a force that the entire Marvel Universe will have trouble contending with. Carnage has the power to absorb his foes and use their strength and mass to empower himself further. This is shown most clearly in Absolute Carnage, where Carnage had become so powerful that even the Incredible Hulk couldn't contend with the monster, and he is drained of his energy, becoming Bruce Banner once more. As if Carnage wasn't powerful enough on his own, given enough time he can rival some of the strongest beings in the Marvel Universe. Not only does this work on organic opponents, however, Carnage has shown he is capable of disrupting and draining the energy from technology. At one point, he even sends his symbiote through the internet to attack someone. You know, cause that makes sense. Carnage is one of Spider-Man's strongest enemies, and due to his incredible strength, durability, shapeshifting, and absorption, it's no surprise that Spidey and Venom are no match for the deadly symbiote, let alone Spidey by himself. It's no wonder that wherever Cletus Cassidy goes, maximum carnage follows.